Hey y'all, today we're making 8 homemade candy bars. So this is a compilation video, so some of these may be older, but I'm working on a big meal prep video and I wanted to give y'all something fun to tide you over. All right, y'all, a bunch of y'all asked for this when I made my last candy bar video. These two, actually, a lot of y'all asked for. Y'all did ask for others too, and they are on my list. I am going to get to them, I promise, but give me a little time. I can't have 500 candy bars at my house. So in a microwave safe bowl, you're gonna add 2 cups of chocolate chips. I'm using milk chocolate. You can use semi-sweet if that's what you prefer. And to that, I added 3 tablespoons of creamy peanut butter. Yes, I'm using store-bought peanut butter. When I have a week or so where I'm using a lot of peanut butter in recipes, I just need to have the ease of going and just grabbing it from the store. But you absolutely can use the homemade peanut butter that I showed y'all how to make. You can make that, use that in these recipes. Or in this recipe. So I heated that up for 30 seconds and then I stirred it up and then I heated it for another 30 seconds and then I'm just gonna mix it up until all my chocolate chips are nice and smooth. Now you can do this over a double boiler if you don't like a microwave, don't have a microwave, just prefer to do it on the stove. You absolutely can do that. I like the ease of doing it in my microwave. So I am using these silicone candy bar molds. I got them off of Amazon. I will link them down below for y'all. So these are not normal size candy bar molds, in my opinion. These are more like a king size candy bar mold, but it's what I had, so that's what I'm using. And so both of these recipes are going to make 8 candy bars, but mind you, they're very large candy bars, so you could absolutely make a lot more smaller candy bars. So I am just equally distributing my chocolate into all 8 of these little silicone molds. Now you can also do this if you don't have candy bar molds. You can do this like on a cookie sheet or a 9x13 pan or whatever and just layer everything and then cut them into bars. But because I had these silicone molds already, I wanted to make these where I wouldn't have to dip these in chocolate. So I spread them out just to make sure I had a good layer on the bottom. And then I'm going to take my little silicone spatula that I'm working with right there, and I'm going to go up the sides of this mold. You're going to see me do it here in just a second, because I thought it's going to be, for me, because y'all know I struggle with dipping stuff and it just annoys me. I do it because sometimes the recipe just calls for it, but I'd rather not if I don't have to. So I'm taking the chocolate and I'm just going to take my little silicone spatula that I'm using and I'm going to rub the chocolate up all 4 sides of that mold to sort of make like a little chocolate bowl, if you will. And don't worry, all of the printable recipes will be down in the description box for y'all as usual if I misspeak something or you miss a detail that I say. It'll all be down there. So once I rubbed it up the sides of the mold, I needed to add just a tiny bit more to the bottom to make sure that my bottom was completely coated. You don't want this super thick because we have a lot of layers in a Snicker bar, but you do want it to be where it's going to hold on to the other ingredients you add. So you can see I had a few little spots I missed. I went back and kind of touched those up. These don't have to be perfect, y'all. They do not. You can see they're not smooth. It'll be just fine. So I'm going to put those in the freezer for about 15 or 20 minutes just to let my chocolate completely set up. So while my chocolate is setting up, we're going to start our nougat layer. So you're going to need 1 cup of powdered sugar. Y'all know I make my own powdered sugar, and I normally add cornstarch to it because of, it's storing it. It keeps it from clumping. But on the offhand chance you're using store-bought powdered sugar, or you didn't add any cornstarch or arrowroot or whatever to your powdered sugar when you made it, it may clump up a little bit. So just sift it just to make sure you don't have any lumps. I sift it even if I make it because I don't want to get out of the habit of sifting it and end up with chunky stuff if I ever have to use the store-bought stuff. You know what I mean? So to our powdered sugar, 1 cup of powdered sugar, we're adding 1/4 cup of peanut butter. You're going to add peanut butter several times in different parts of this recipe, so just keep it on standby. Then we're going to add 1 entire 7-ounce container of marshmallow cream, marshmallow fluff, whatever you call it, wherever you're from. You're going to add that right into your bowl. You can make marshmallow fluff too, I'm sure. Now, we've made marshmallows together, but I haven't made like the marshmallow fluff. I mean, maybe we'll do that one day. Not today, but maybe one day. So anyway, you're just going to mix this together. Now, I didn't use my mixer because the marshmallow is so sticky. I thought it was just going to kind of gum up my mixer. So I just used a little elbow grease, and it does take a little elbow grease. And you just keep mixing and keep mixing and keep mixing. I had powdered sugar all over me. But you're just going to keep mixing until it forms like this little dough ball. And it won't be sticky anymore. I mean, it will be on the inside, but like you see, it's not sticking to my silicone spatula, like I'm able to actually move it around. So that is our nougat layer, y'all. Who knew? It's delicious too. So now our chocolate should be ready. We're going to pull our chocolate out of the freezer. And as you can see, it's nice and set up. And we've got our little chocolate boats right there, ready for the next layer. And I just kind of gave it a little test to make sure it was going to come out of my silicone mold. So you're just going to take, I don't know, maybe a couple of tablespoons of your nougat mixture. You really can use it however much you want. Now, I had to kind of be careful because I only have so much room in these molds, and Snickers has a lot of layers. So we've got chocolate, and then we're adding the nougat, then we have to add peanuts, and then caramel, and then chocolate again. So I didn't want to run out of room with all the other stuff I had to add. But if the nougat is your favorite part of a Snickers, then you add as much in there as you want to. If you want one candy bar that's nothing but nougat and chocolate, then you just go ahead and make it. But did I say you can also make this like in a 9x13 pan or something, and just put the chocolate down, then put the nougat down, and then cut these into bars? Again, I didn't want to do that because I don't know. I just want them to be more candy bar-like without me having to do that. So anyway, you're just going to split your nougat up until you've added it to all of your little chocolate molds. And then we're going to add the peanut layer. Now, this is another one. The best thing about homemade stuff is you can do as little or as many as you want. If the peanuts is your favorite part, then you put as many peanuts on there as you want. Or if you're like, I could take or leave the peanuts, don't put a whole lot on there. You can do it however you want to do it. Because y'all know good and well, sometimes when you get a Snicker bar, it's loaded with certain things, and sometimes it's not. It's not always the same, so do it however you want to at your house. But anywho, just keep in mind that you're going to need room for the 12 other layers that we have to add on here. So just make sure that you push your peanuts down into the nougat so they'll kind of hold on, because we are going to have to spread the caramel layer on here. So we don't want peanuts going everywhere. So just make sure that you push them down into your nougat. These candy bars are going to be a lot of you touching them, so make sure you have clean hands and that you don't have an aversion to touching food, because you're going to need to do that. Or if you want to put gloves on, you certainly can, but I mean, I didn't see the point. So now we're going to make our caramel layer. So I'm using, obviously, these caramel bits. You can also use regular caramels, the little square ones that you unwrap. Those bags and this bag are both 11 ounces. I'm using half the bag. So if you use regular caramel, use half of the bag. Make sure that you unwrap them. I mean, I don't feel like I should have to say that, but you know, they put warning labels on blow dryers, like don't use it while you're standing in the shower. So, you know, unwrap your caramel. So I popped that in the microwave for about 30 seconds and then realized that it's not going to get as smooth as I want it to be. So I am going to go ahead and add to this 1 tablespoon of heavy whipping cream just to make it a little bit smoother. Now, you don't want to add too much because we don't want this to be so liquidy that it just runs off of our candy bars. Like, we want this to be a solid layer of caramel on these candy bars. So 1 tablespoon to this amount. Now, if you double it, obviously you may need to add a little bit more, but just kind of use your judgment. And so I'm mixing it up real good until you get your heavy whipping cream mixed in really good with your caramel. And I found this recipe on Pinterest, and then I just tweaked it to make it what I wanted it to be. So I kind of got the basics from Pinterest, and then I just went with what I wanted to do. And it turned out great. So you can also do that. Again, one of the best things about making homemade candy bars is you can do it however you want to do it. If you are watching your sugar, then use sugar-free chocolate chips. If you don't want the salted peanuts, then use unsalted peanuts. Like, you can really customize these. Now, can you make them completely and utterly healthy? Probably not. But you can tweak them to where you can actually enjoy a little bit of it, even if you have a diet that kind of restricts you from certain things. That's what I'm loving about all this homemade stuff, y'all. So spread your caramel out on your bars. It does not have to be perfect. And then we're going to put this back in the freezer for about another 15 or 20 minutes, just until the caramel sets up. Now, you can also just sit these in the refrigerator, but I have a lot to do today, so I'm trying to hurry up and get through, get the sitting parts done. All right, so when you're ready to pull your candy bars out of the freezer, we're going to do one last chocolate layer. So you're going to do about 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. We're going to microwave that 30 seconds at a time until everything is nice and smooth and melted. And excuse me, if you're doing this in a 9x13 pan or something, then you may need more chocolate for your top layer, or more caramel for your caramel layer, or whatever the case is. Absolutely adjust that. Don't think that you can't go back in and adjust things if you want more of something. I just had to go with what would fit into my molds. So again, I will link these molds for y'all just so you can see the size, like for size reference, in case you have molds also. But I feel like this makes 8 really big bars. So if you have like a regular size candy bar mold, you can probably get 16 candy bars out of here. Or you can make little mini candy bars. Do it however you want to, y'all. You could make this in a 9x13 pan, do all the layers and then cut them into little bite-sized pieces and then dip those in chocolate. If you want. I'm going to choke to death tonight. If you want to do that, is what I was trying to say. So now I'm just going to take a spoon, because it's a little easier for me to control than my little silicone spatula. And I'm just going to layer a little thin layer, because I was all the way to the top of these molds at this point. But I am being extra, not really careful, but I'm paying extra attention to make sure that the chocolate I'm adding goes corner to corner and everything is completely covered, because when I pull this out of the mold, I want it to be a solid chocolate bar. I don't want it to have chocolate on the bottom and then a gap where there's no chocolate and then chocolate layer on top. You know what I'm saying? So I went edge to edge to make sure that my chocolate is touching my other chocolate, so it comes out in one solid piece. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I know sometimes I feel like I talk around the world to say something, but it's just the way my brain processes it. So anyway, once you get everything covered up completely, and it doesn't have to be perfect. This is the top of our candy bar, and the tops of Snicker bars are not perfect anyway. So you can do a design, make it smooth, whatever you want to do to it. Then I'm going to put that back in the freezer until the chocolate's completely set up. Probably, or I'll put it in the refrigerator probably. But anyway, I did it. You just put it in the refrigerator or the freezer until it's completely set up. And this is your Snicker bar. Obviously, I have a little overlap there on the top where the edge of the mold was, but look at that, y'all. Solid chocolate wonderfulness. And of course, I'm going to break into it so y'all can see what it looks like in real time. So that is our Snicker bar. You can see all the layers. We've got chocolate on the top and bottom, our nougat in the middle, some peanuts, and our caramel layer. And it is delicious, y'all. They are so good. They taste just like a Snicker bar. I got to get a little taste. This was another highly requested one, and also requested by my son. So To a pot, we are going to add 1 1/2 tablespoons of butter, and it is unsalted. And then I'm going to add in here 1 cup of the Reese's peanut butter chips. We're going to add that in there. Then we're going to take that to the stove, and we're going to let that heat. I have my stove on medium. It just whatever you want to put it on. I'm not walking away from it. I'm standing there. It doesn't take long to do this. So you're just going to mix that until your chips are melted and your butter is melted and your little mixture is nice and smooth, okay? Just mix it around. Like I said, it takes less than a minute. So then you're going to add in here 1/2 of a can of sweetened condensed milk. Now, I did show y'all how to make your own condensed milk, but I don't have any made right now. So a can is what I'm using, but you absolutely can use the homemade sweetened condensed milk for this. So 1/2 a can, like I said, is what I'm adding in here. And then you're going to stir that up good. And then we're going to add in about a teaspoon of vanilla. Y'all know I don't measure vanilla. About a teaspoon is what I added. Stir that up real good. We want to make sure everything is really good and mixed in. Nice and smooth and yummy. You know, we want it to be all good and mixed. Then you're going to add in here 1 cup of mini marshmallows, okay? 1 cup of mini marshmallows going in, and then we're going to mix this until our marshmallows are melted, okay, and our mixture is smooth again. You can do this in the microwave if you don't want to do it on the stove. You absolutely can do each step in the microwave. I don't have the instructions for all that, but it can be done. So anyway, once it is nice and smooth, you're going to take it off the heat. And I'm using another one of those same silicone molds that you just saw me use. And I cut this recipe in half from the one that I had found. And y'all know I tweaked it a little bit. Anyway, whatever. But I did cut it in half because I already had 8 gigantic Snicker bars. I didn't need 55 gigantic PayDay bars. And I really thought that I would just get 4 PayDay bars out of this. But I ended up getting 8. So I still ended up with a half recipe. I still ended up with 8 of these really big candy bars. And like, I know that y'all are looking at this going, those don't look like really big candy bars, but they are bigger than the store-bought ones. I'm just saying. Maybe not quite the size of a king size, but they're pretty big. So then I'm just evenly, I'm putting some of that mixture on top of those peanuts. I wasn't sure, again, how many I was going to be able to fit, so I just kind of, once I did the 4, I just did 1 or 2 at a time until, you know, to make sure I had enough. I didn't want to waste a bunch of peanuts pouring them in there. So you're just going to pour that in there, and then you don't have to be perfect spreading this because, you know, PayDays are kind of chunky, clunky, and round anyway. So I wasn't perfect, and I just put that layer on top. Forgot to set it on my darn cookie sheet. Put it on a cookie sheet, y'all, if you're using these silicone molds because they're very flimsy, a lot of them. And it's a lot easier to transfer things when they're on a cookie sheet as opposed to on a floppy silicone mold. So once you get that mixture in there, while it's still warm, you want to add some peanuts to the top. And it is a PayDay, so you know what? Go crazy with those peanuts. But make sure that you're able to push them down into that mixture. Otherwise, you're going to have the same problem that you have when you open a PayDay candy bar from the store. Peanuts are going to fall out everywhere. And spoiler alert, they do on this too. They do on this too. I didn't get all of them pressed in, so we will have some loose peanuts you'll see when I pull them out of the refrigerator. But it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's still delicious. And these do taste just like a PayDay. But the only difference is these are softer than a PayDay. Now, they're not like mushy like marshmallows, but they are a softer texture than a regular PayDay. So I am storing both of these candy bars in the refrigerator. I put those in there until they set up completely, until that, you know, the mixture that's in the middle cooled down. But you see I had little extra peanuts kind of falling off there, and that's fine if you have that too. Then you just pop them out of your mold, and look, it looks just like a PayDay because it is, except it's better because we made it at home. And then this is what they look like. But you see the texture is soft, but it's not like mushy soft. You know what I'm saying? So that is our PayDay, and I had to get a little taste of that too. You know, I had to let y'all know what it tastes like. But then the rest of it my son is going to have to eat because, yeah, I don't need all this candy. So anyway, that is our PayDay candy bars and our Snickers candy bar. Don't worry, I have the other ones y'all requested coming up soon. Okay, so first up, you're going to need some candy corn. The original recipe actually calls for a pound of candy corn, but mine was an 11-ounce bag, so I'm going to adjust the recipe to what I have. But I will put the original recipe. I will type that out down in the description box for y'all. I found this on the Wads. She was making this, and I thought, if that tastes anything like Butterfinger, I have got to try that. So what you're going to do is dump your candy corn in a microwave-safe bowl, and then you're going to microwave it for 30 seconds at a time until it is melted, okay? And you don't want to go like too far over because it's just going to turn into a brick. So you see I still had a few little clumps in there, but if you stir it just for a second or two, it'll go ahead and melt the little pieces that aren't melted, just like with chocolate or anything. So now this is a 16-ounce jar of peanut butter, and again, the original recipe calls for you to put the whole jar in, but because I'm only using 11 ounces of the candy corn, I used about 3/4 of this jar. So that's what you're going to dump in here into your candy corn. And I know that a lot of people are not candy corn fans, but just trust me on this one. This does not taste anything like candy corn. These turn out tasting exactly like a Butterfinger. It even has the sort of little flaky texture, you know, that Butterfinger has, except these are not as hard as a Butterfinger. I love Butterfingers, but sometimes I can't eat them because they're kind of hard to chew, you know, because they're so hard. This is the exact same flavor with that really good flaky texture, but not as hard to chew, if that makes sense. Now you're seeing me, I started out with a silicone spoon, but as this candy corn starts to harden, as you can see, it gets very difficult to stir with a silicone utensil. So I had to get a regular spoon out to try to get that stirred up. So you need to work pretty fast with this, and just know that if it starts to just solidify on the side of your bowl, just scrape it down like you see me doing right there, and then just keep on mixing it in, and it'll mix in. It's not going to be like huge clumps of it or whatever because it's still warm, remember? So as you mix it up, it'll mix. I promise it will. And like I said, y'all, even if you're not team candy corn, which I am, I love candy corn, I had to give y'all this recipe for number one because it turned out fantastic, and because it has candy corn in it. So, you know, it's the holiday season, the Halloween and fall holiday season. We had to do something that involved candy corn, right? So anyway, candy corn for the win in this recipe. I promise y'all, trust me on this one. If you make it, you're going to love it. Once I got these made, once they were completely made and done and set and everything, I just left them in a container covered with some foil on my counter. Not that they lasted very long around here, but I mean, it's super, super simple. You don't have to refrigerate them or anything. So now, once you get everything really good and mixed in, you're going to dump that mixture right into some sort of a cookie sheet or a pan or just whatever it'll fit into. And just dump it in there. Line it with some parchment paper because I promise you that is going to make your life a whole lot easier, okay? It's super sticky and thick, so just do the best you can to get this, what am I trying to say? Flattened out, evened out, spread evenly. There we go. I knew it would come to me in a minute if I kept talking. So just kind of spread it as evenly as you can into your pan because, you know, once it sets, that's going to be your bars. So try to get them kind of even. And then once you get these all pressed out, and it doesn't matter how thick or thin you get them, honestly, y'all, it's just going to be how thick your bars are. But once you get it all, spread out, you're going to put this in your refrigerator and just let it sit. I just let mine stay in there for a couple of hours until it was completely set, okay? Now, like I said, it's kind of hard, like rock hard, but if you slam it down, it's going to break, So just, be careful with it. And then you're just going to take a big knife and cut it into however big a piece you want yours to be. Okay? That's all you got to do. And I ended up cutting mine crooked, but that's okay. They taste exactly the same whether they're crooked or whatever. Now, I think when Kim made these on her channel, I think she said that the original recipe maybe called for you to melt the chocolate and spread it over the bars and then cut them. But she had cut hers and dipped them, and I thought it looked pretty easy when she did that, so that's what I decided to do, but you can do either way. So once you get your little bars cut into squares, you're going to take about a cup of chocolate chips. I'm using milk chocolate, and we're going to melt that in the microwave 30 seconds at a time until it's nice and smooth, okay? So now I just took... see how crooked they are, y'all? Don't judge me. My knife skills are not the best when I'm trying to cut. I can't cut a straight line, y'all. If you've been here any length of time, you know I cannot cut a straight line. So that's what they look like. You're just going to take them and dip the top of them in some chocolate. And that's it. I just sat them on another little piece of parchment paper. Y'all, I'm telling y'all, when I tell you that these things are stinking delicious. Again, if you in any way, shape, or form like Butterfinger bars, these taste exactly like a Butterfinger. I promise you, you cannot taste the candy corn. If I would not have told the people who I fed these to that there was candy corn in them, they never would have believed me. Never would have believed me, because it doesn't taste a thing like candy corn. It just tastes like a Butterfinger. How many times am I going to say that? I don't know, but I just need y'all to understand. It really does taste like Butterfinger. So, I mean, if you really love Butterfinger, then just cut them in, just pour the chocolate over the top and eat the whole thing when you sit down. Of course, that'd probably give you a couple of trips to the dentist and, maybe some other places with all that candy. But they're good. They're really, really good. And my grandkids are coming over this weekend, y'all. And I thought they would, be some left, but they're all gone. And I promise I ate like 2. That's it. I ate like 2. Other people ate these. I'm telling you, they were delicious. I might have to do me a little Walmart pickup order so I can get some more candy corn. I think I have everything else, but I'm going to have to get some more candy corn because I'm going to have to make these for the grandbabies. I bet they would love these. I mean, not to mention their mom and daddy would probably love them too. But anyway, I got down to the final little piece and I was like, well, this one's really too thin to serve anybody. Let me just eat it myself. And I looked like Messy Marvin with all that chocolate all over my hands. But you know what? That's okay. Don't judge me. It was delicious. But once you let them sit for a little bit, that chocolate will set on the top. You can stack these or do whatever you want to with them. They are delicious. So you got Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is get your pan ready. Now, I started to get a pan, I started to do a full recipe of this, but I ended up only doing half. So my pan was really too big, but we'll get to that in a minute. You only need like an 8x8 pan for this, but you want to make sure that it is prepared before you start. So what you're going to need to add to your pan is 2 sticks of butter or 1 cup of butter. And if you don't have a silicone mat like I do in my pan, you can use a little bit of oil or butter to grease your pan, but just make sure you have something on there. And I would not use parchment paper because it will stick to the parchment paper. So we're going to get our 2 cups of butter melting, and then to that we're going to add 1 cup of sugar. That's just plain white sugar. And then we're going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then you're going to add in a 1/2 tablespoon of light corn syrup, okay? And then we are going to let this heat. We're going to bring it to a boil. Stir it up real good. Get your sugar mixed in good. But once it starts to boil, you don't want to stir it anymore, okay? We're going to just let it go. And ideally, you would be doing this in like a heavier, like a thicker pot, a heavy bottomed pot, because it maintains the temperature better than these thin pans. pot, pan, whatever. But mine was dirty in the dishwasher, so this is what I'm using. So once it comes to a boil, you're going to let it boil like this until it reaches 295 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? I am checking mine with my meat thermometer because that is the thermometer that I have. But whatever kind of thermometer you need, you have candy thermometer or whatever, that's what you're going to use. You just need to make sure that this gets to 295 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? And again, I would use a heavy bottom pot because it's going to maintain the temperature so much better. And I'm going to show you in a second why I'm telling you that and what happens when you use a thin pot. I'm going to leave my mistakes in here so that y'all don't make the same mistakes I did. Okay, so I immediately pulled that off the stove and then sat my pot right down on a cold countertop, which also changed the temperature of my mixture. So when you pull yours off the stove though, you're going to want to immediately pour it into whatever pan you're using because it is going to start to set up really quickly. But you see how mine looks really watery right now? That is because when the temperature changed drastically when I pulled that off of the stove and sat it on that cold countertop, it sort of made my butter start to separate from the rest of the mixture. So it looks like there's a little bit of oily residue, and that's just butter. But once you get this all spread out, you're going to let this cool on the counter for an hour or two until it completely hardens up, okay? You want it to be completely set before you move to the next step. And I had little pieces that broke just because, again, I used the wrong size pan, so mine ended up pretty thin. But if you use the right size pan, like for this amount, if you use an 8x8 dish, it'll be the perfect size. So once your toffee part has hardened up, you're going to add about 3/4 of a cup, 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips to a small microwave safe bowl. Then you're going to put those in the microwave and then stir them every 30 seconds until your chocolate chips melt. Now, this is after the first 30 seconds in the microwave. This is why you need to stir it. See how it's melted on the bottom, but the chips on the top are not melted? Make sure that you stir it up so that the chocolate on the bottom doesn't scorch, okay? Just mix it up. It usually only takes 2 rounds for mine in my microwave, but you know, all microwaves are a little bit different. So this is after the second 30 seconds, and it looks like they're not melted, but if you mix, usually at this step, the already melted hot chocolate that's in there will go ahead and melt the rest of the chips that aren't completely melted. See how it's getting super smooth just as I'm stirring it right there? And you don't need to add any, a lot of times you'll add like coconut oil to thin your chocolate out and stuff. You don't need that in this recipe. So just the chocolate chips is what I used. And the printable recipe link with all the instructions will be down in the description box for y'all. So now what we're going to do, I don't think I said this either. When you're heating up your mixture on the stove, do that over a medium heat, okay? You don't want it too high, but you do want it hot enough to boil it. Okay, once our chocolate is all melted and ready, you're just going to spread that out over the top of your toffee layer. Because if you don't know what a Heath bar is, it's basically toffee covered in chocolate. And the candy bars obviously are completely covered, so the bottoms are also covered in chocolate. But since we're just making this at home, I'm just going to spread it on the top. I mean, it's going to taste exactly the same. So you can do it either way. You can break this into pieces and then dip the whole piece into chocolate if you want to do it that way. But I just found that it was easy to just spread it on the top. And again, it will be more uniform and easier to work with if it's in the right size pan. But again, do as I say, not as I do, right? So I'm just spreading this out. You can do it as thick or as thin as you want. If you feel like the chocolate's not thick enough, then use more chocolate chips. Any way you want to do it is fine. That's one of the best things about making stuff at home and doing it homemade is you still get that yummy flavor like if you bought it from the store, but you get to adjust it to exactly how you want it. So you're just going to let that sit on the counter, or if you're in a hurry, in the refrigerator until the chocolate completely sets up. And y'all know I had to get me a little taste. So the little pieces I didn't cover in chocolate because I thought that piece at the end was broken too. So I took this little piece here and just run it in that extra chocolate that spilled right there and had me a little taste. It was delicious. Just spoiler alert, it was delicious. So anywho, now all you have to do, now if you want it to be perfect, you can try just cutting it with a knife or whatever, but I just break mine. You know, just break pieces of it off. It doesn't have to be perfect, y'all. It's going to taste exactly the same whether you break it or cut it, I promise. But that's all you have to do. Y'all had asked me about this recipe specifically when I made candy bars before, and I'm just now getting around to doing it for y'all. So I hope that y'all enjoy this. It is super, super good. So if you like Heath bars, you definitely need to try these. All right, y'all. I hope that y'all make these and that y'all enjoy them. So this is going to be like a sort of a copycat of like a Nestle Crunch bar. I just thought it sounded really good. So what we're going to do is take about a cup of milk chocolate chips, add that to a microwave safe bowl, and then you're going to add to that 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. Make sure that you get the kind of coconut oil that does not smell and taste like coconut. I mean, unless you like that kind of thing. But I will tell you, I like coconut. But in my opinion, the coconut oil that actually tastes like coconut is a little much. It's a little too much for me. But anyway, do what you want. So you're going to microwave your chocolate chips 30 seconds at a time, stirring them every 30 seconds until your chocolate chips are melted, okay? It only takes me like 2 rounds of that, like a whole total minute. So what I'm going to add to my chocolate chips is about a 1/2 cup of Rice Krispies. You can use crispy rice, whatever brand you want. I just happen to have these little mini boxes because they came in a pack, like the little variety pack I'd gotten for my grandkids. And they don't really care for plain old Rice Krispies. So I had these left over and I thought these would be perfect. So mix that up until all of your little Rice Krispies are good and coated. Now I'm going to use this silicone candy bar mold. I got it off of Amazon. I will link it down below for y'all. You don't have to use this. You could put some parchment paper on a cookie sheet or in like a bacon, some sort of a bacon dish, and just pour it all in there and then just cut it up after it's set if you want to do it that way. So once you get your chocolate in your mold or whatever you're putting it in, just straighten it out. You know, try to get it as flat as you can. I mean, if you're trying to make a candy bar, try to make it look like a candy bar, right? So that's what I'm doing here, just kind of straightening it out. And I actually had a different video planned for y'all, but if you watch the weather at all, you'll know, and if you know where I live down here in South Louisiana, y'all know that we got a whole lot of snow this week, and we're snowed in. So we can't leave the house and nothing is delivering. So I kind of had to look around and come up with some things that I could make with things that I already had here. And I just thought to myself, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while anyway, ever since I did my s'mores video and we made those chocolate bars together. Now, I'm using chocolate chips because that's easier, and I haven't found a homemade chocolate recipe that I love yet. When I do, I will share it with y'all, but for right now, we're going to go with chocolate chips. And I'm just going to bump my mold a couple of times just to kind of make sure it gets in all the little grooves, and it doesn't completely. You'll see that after a while. But that's it. That is our little crunch bars. So the filling for these is the same exact thing. We're going to take some unsweetened coconut. You can use sweetened if you want to, but in my opinion, it makes it a little bit too sweet. So, you know, unsweetened is just fine. It's still going to be very sweet and taste just like the candy bar. So you're going to add 3 cups, and I'm just showing y'all that I didn't use quite that whole bag, but 3 cups of coconut. Now, if you don't want quite as big of pieces of your coconut, you can run those through a little, you know, food processor, whatever you want to do. But I thought they were fine the way they were. So then we're adding to that 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. And this recipe if I didn't say this already, the recipes are in the description box just like they always are. But this recipe makes a lot. So what I did, because the middle part, the coconut and condensed milk part, is exactly the same on both candy bars, I just did half of one and half of another. But you can make as many as you want. And like I said, it's all in the description box on the printable recipes for y'all. So when you're putting these together, you're going to want to get some water and get damp, clean hands, of course. Get your hands kind of damp. Don't get a lot of water on them, but just let your fingers be damp. Otherwise, this is going to stick to you and you're never going to get it off your fingers. And cooking spray and stuff does not work with this. It needs to be water, because I tried it. You know, I tried it, y'all. So anyway, you're just going to keep going. I'm trying to get these into like the shape of, you know, what they normally come from in the store. You know, the little sort of flat log looking shapes. Did I do perfect? Yeah, not so much. But, you know, I did the best I could, y'all. Did the best I could. So you're just going to keep going until you get these all made. Now, I have got some just lightly roasted, lightly salted, whatever they are, almonds. That's what I use, whatever kind of almonds you have. And for the Almond Joy ones, I'm just going to kind of press the almond down into it. And then I sort of pinch them together in a minute to kind of get a little bit of the coconut to kind of... I was trying to get it to hold on to the almond, if that makes sense. Because I already knew these were going to be hard to coat with the chocolate, with that almond on top. And if y'all remember back when I did the Christmas video, I did just like some coconut balls. They're made the exact same way with the coconut and the condensed milk, but with those I made them into a little ball and I put the almond in the center. You could do that here too. Once you get these made, y'all, put them in the freezer for at least 30 minutes, okay? Right before you get ready to pull them out of the freezer, you're going to dump in your bowl. I probably did a little more than a cup right here. I have in the recipes that if you're doing the full recipe, start with 2 cups. I'm probably, maybe I have a cup and a half in there right now. And it works because I'm only doing half of it, you know. So add in here your, what is that? Your tablespoon of coconut oil. And then we're going to microwave these just like we did all the other things. They're going in the microwave 30 seconds at a time. Stir them every 30 seconds until your chips are melted. Once they come out, you see how they look like they're not at all melted? This is the case with any of the stuff we've melted. Just stir them. Just keep stirring, stirring, stirring. Now, if you can't get it to stir in, then pop it back in the microwave for a few seconds. But most of the time, even if they look like they're not melted, if you sit there for just a second and mix those, the chocolate that is melted will go ahead and finish melting the ones that look like they're not melted, if that makes sense. So there was a definite learning curve to these Almond Joy ones. Because I was trying not to flip them over, because normally, you know, you put it in, you flip it over and all that. Now look at me trying to scoop with a fork that has no tines on it, y'all. My goodness, send help. Anyway, I was trying to not have to flip it over because I didn't want my almond to fall off. But when I picked it up, you'll see right there, and tried to get the chocolate off of it, it started bending in the middle. And I was like, oh my gosh, because they're very cold and set, but they're not frozen solid. So they still are pretty soft. And this was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is about to fall apart. So I'm going to speed this up in a second, but I went through a couple of different ways trying to figure out the best way to do these without just messing everything up. And I finally do end up, look y'all, there wasn't even any chocolate on the bottom of that one. And I was a mess. I was a mess. But I tried a bunch of different ways and I'm still holding it sideways, already knowing that that's not going to work. But I do end up turning it long ways and then just scooping the chocolate over the top and then picking it up long ways, and it worked out so much better. So do it that way, not the first 12 ways I messed up. And then those two right there, my chocolate was starting to set up and I didn't want to put it back in the microwave, so I just threw the chocolate over the top, over the top of those. I'm sorry, y'all. I know it's not pretty, but it's reality. So for our Mounds bars, we're going to use semi-sweet chocolate chips. I had this little bag of the mini semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm not a big fan of dark chocolate. If y'all been following me for any length of time, you know that. And I couldn't have gotten any anyway because we can't get to the store with all the snow and ice. So I just said, you know what? Semi-sweet will be just fine. And it was. Spoiler alert, it definitely was. So we're doing this the same way as the other three. We're going to put this in the microwave 30 seconds at a time, stirring it every 30 seconds until it is completely melted. I feel like I need to say that for everyone in case somebody is skipping around and didn't hear me say it the first 3 times. So mix that up real good until, you know, till it's smooth, till it's completely smooth. Now, if you mix for a minute and you can't get them mixed in, just put them back in the microwave for a minute or 2. And I put those little, what is it called? What is it called, y'all? Not cinnamon, coconut. Oh my gosh, it's late. I need a nap. Anyway, coconut, the little coconut things for the Mounds. After I finished the Almond Joys, I put those back into the freezer because they had started getting too soft. So if you need to put them back in the freezer, you absolutely can. And look, I know that somebody is going to make a comment about what these look like. We're not going to talk about that. I did the best I could. Don't judge me. But, you know, they're in, like, Almond Joys and Mounds come in a little log shape. Normally they're flatter and a little more uniform, but look, we're doing this at home, not on a machine. It's not going to be perfect, y'all. But just like with the Almond Joys, if you wanted to do these in like little bite-sized pieces rather than the log shape that you're seeing me do, then you certainly can do that, okay? You can certainly do it any kind of shape you want them to be. Look, I can't hardly look at them now. Anyway, they're delicious though, y'all. So once those are done, you're going to pop those into the refrigerator for maybe about 30 minutes. But these were so good. Now, I have some recipes for some more complicated, this video does, how y'all are liking it. But let me know down in the comments too if y'all want to see more like candy bar videos. We've been doing a lot of homemade stuff, and it's great to have homemade meals and stuff like that. But it's also nice to be able to make some fun stuff homemade, you know. So that's why I'm trying to put these in there every now and then, give y'all a little sweet treat. So the first thing that we're going to make is sort of a copycat of a traditional Reese's peanut butter cup, okay? So we're going to start with about a cup of milk chocolate chips, melt those in the microwave. I do mine for a total of 1 minute, but I stir it every 30 seconds. Just heat it up until your chips are melted, but only do it for short periods of time because you don't want to burn it. If you don't like to use your microwave, you can absolutely do this over a double boiler. You just need to melt your chocolate. However you do that will be just fine. Now I am going to use silicone muffin cups for mine. I just find that anytime I'm working, especially with chocolate like this, it is so much easier to get out of a silicone mold, whatever kind of, you know, whatever you're making. Silicone is just so easy to remove stuff from. So I'm adding in here about, not quite a tablespoon. That is a tablespoon I'm using, but I mean, clearly it's not a measuring tablespoon and I'm not filling it all the way up. You just want a little layer of chocolate in the bottom of each of your muffin cups. So however much you want to add. If you look at mine at the end when I cut them open and you think it's too much chocolate on the bottom, then don't add quite as much. Or if you like a whole lot more, then you can add a whole lot more. It actually would be really good if you had some of the little mini muffin cups, and then you could make sort of like just the little bite-sized pieces. Those would be really good too. Depending on how many people you're serving them to. You might be just making this for yourself. You know, we don't judge. So anyway, now I'm just kind of trying to even it out a little bit. You absolutely do not have to do this. I'm going to bump it on the counter in a minute, and that's all it really needed to settle the chocolate down. Don't worry, all of the printable recipe links will be in the description box for y'all as usual. And I am in the process of trying to go back on my older videos and add printable recipes to those too. But it's taken me a long time, y'all. So I will get it done eventually, just bear with me. So put those in the freezer for about, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. All right, so now we're going to make the peanut butter center. So you're going to take 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and you're going to melt those in the microwave. And then we're going to use some creamy peanut butter. If all you have is crunchy, use it. You'll just have crunchy Reese's. It'll be fine. And I am using this out of a big old tub from the grocery store because I have used up all of my homemade peanut butter. So I haven't had time to make any more. And because I'm leaving in just a couple of days to go on a cruise, I didn't want to make some and then have it sit there and nobody eat it. So store-bought it is. But you can definitely use homemade peanut butter for this. So go ahead and scoop out your 1/2 cup of peanut butter. Do that while your butter's melting. Then once your butter's nice and melted, pour that right over into your peanut butter and stir it up really good until you get your butter and your peanut butter really good and combined. Now, I did say unsalted butter, and that's because I very rarely ever buy salted butter. So I almost exclusively use unsalted butter, but I do add just a teeny bit of salt to this. So if you have salted butter, just don't add the extra sprinkle of salt in here, okay? So now I'm going to add just a little vanilla, maybe 1/2 teaspoon. I just like the extra flavor that it gives. And then just that little pinch of salt. Again, because my butter is unsalted. But if you have salted butter, leave the salt out. You don't need to add extra. So stir that up until it's all nice and combined. You know, get your salt all mixed in there. Then we're going to add the powdered sugar. Now, y'all know I make my homemade powdered sugar. That's why it's in a Ziploc bag. We're going to need 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, but you don't want to add this all at once because it's going to be very stiff as you mix it in. And if you add it all at once, it just feels like it takes forever to get it mixed in. So I add 1/4 of a cup, mix that up. Then I add another 1/4 cup, mix that up. Do it however you want to, but for me, this is the easiest way to do it, where it's easier to mix and you don't end up with powdered sugar in too many places. You know, sometimes powdered sugar does what it wants to, but if you mix it in little by little, it usually is quite a bit easier. So once you get this all completely combined, we're also going to stick this over into the freezer for about 20 minutes or so, just so it can set up. Because of that warm butter and the peanut butter, it's a little bit soft right now. So we want it to, you know, be able to hold together in a minute. So once everything is set up and good to go, we're going to take our chocolate out of the freezer, and you're going to take, this is a tablespoon measuring spoon, and I don't fill the whole thing up, so it's a little less than a tablespoon is what I'm using. You're just going to form that into a little disc and then lay it right on top of your chocolate. And you see I'm not making a big enough piece that goes all the way to the edges. That is because we want to be able to pour the chocolate over the peanut butter and have the bottom chocolate and the top chocolate connect. So it's a solid Reese's cup, you know what I'm saying? Back in the freezer or the refrigerator to set up until your chocolate's completely set. And then we're going to do the same exact thing with our milk chocolate. I had to think about what it was for a minute. And you could also do, if you wanted to do these like for a holiday, a party, you know, whatever, you can add sprinkles to these, but make sure that you add the sprinkles on like right after you add the chocolate, because the chocolate starts to set up fairly quickly. And if you don't add your sprinkles on, you know, when you're doing it while your chocolate is still hot, then your sprinkles are just going to fall off. They're not going to stick, you know. So if you want to add sprinkles, I mean, I've never seen Reese's with sprinkles, but if you wanted to for a party or whatever reason, then you can. I'm just letting you know that you can do that. So then we're going to also put this one back in the freezer just to set up, okay? These are super, super easy, y'all. That's why I wanted to share these. If it ain't moldy, we eat it. I'm just telling you, that's how it works around here. All right, well, I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. That's all that I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.